Fear and competition can be your best friend.
Season 3 of the Little Bricks podcast is back. We've got some amazing guests. Can't wait for you to see them. We're going to be speaking mental health, addiction, recovery, sales, business, sports, all sorts of topics. Distraction kills dreams. With the people you spend time with, you will become. Tough times don't ever last, but tough people do. I cannot wait to share it with you.
This week's episode of the Little Bricks podcast is sponsored by Bespoke Financial Group, the UK's #1 life insurance broker, helping protect your little bricks too.
Welcome to the Little Bricks podcast, my mate Danny Christie. How are you, pal?
I'm good, mate. Thank you.
Thank you for jumping on, mate. We got there in the end.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It has, mate, yeah. I thought in true fashion I couldn't do a podcast without a cuppa in my hand to speak to you. So.
She's finished mine, mate.
It's tea you drink, right?
Tea, mate. Tea and honey. Yeah.
Tea and honey.
Yeah, like honey, mate. Don't use sugar no more.
There we go. So it's big fight week for you. But I'd like to start right back at the journey, mate, before obviously you've come to the public light.
Yes, mate.
Outside of your usual circle, of course. Where are you from? Where did it start? A little bit about your backstory, please, mate.
I was born just on the next street over there. I was born in a back bedroom. Just on the next street over there. Me, mum and dad were addicts. Had a bit of an up and down kind of upbringing. My mum went away for a little bit and my dad died and I went and lived with my granddad for a while. And he was always like my father figure to us. You know, growing up wasn't bad. You know, I've got some good memories. They stand out better, you know, more than the bad ones. Some real good times growing up. You know, some excellent memories with my granddad. You know, he had us out and about everywhere. You know, I loved him to bits. You know, I miss him every day. School was all right. Got a little bit of a hard time and that. And I started boxing when I was 11, but I never used it in the street. I didn't really have the confidence, you know, until I was about 16, 17 when I left school. I got into a couple of fights with lads that were rough lads. You know, they were. I think people's opinion that they were going to wipe the floor with us, you know, and you know, they never. I mean, I handled them. I had a couple of fights like that after school, you know, when I finished school, and I sort of knew I could handle myself from that point, and it went the wrong way a little bit, mate, to be honest. Started drinking and that, and doing a lot of fighting. I've had some fights, you know, and just became that person really who, you know, wouldn't really back down from anyone. And I looked for it, mate. You know, I did. I looked for it for years. I looked for it from when I was about 17, 18, way up until I was about 35. You know, I just looked for it, mate. And I have to be honest. I used to really like that. You know, I had a real passion for, you know, like physically engaging with people. For all the wrong reasons, you know, I had, you know, I harnessed a lot of my own problems, my own negativity and fear, ultimately fear, you know, fear of, you know, other people's perception of me. You know, that was always at the forefront of my mind, really, like reputation and, you know, like, does he think I'm a mug? You know, is he laughing at me? Like, you know, that sort of stupidity, you know, and even right through, you know, when I was in prison, the same, you know, fighting all the time. Like I say, I loved it, but for all the wrong reasons, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a bit of an entanglement last year, you know, which I don't really talk about anymore. You know, when the fight blew up, you know. And it was on the run up to that, you know. Really realised, you know, I had a drugs problem, you know, and a major one, really. I got 6 days notice for that fight, and I remember thinking, you know, I better chill out on these tablets and the rest of it. I thought, you know, I better chill out, and I went 3 days without anything.
Yeah.
I was fighting on the Friday, and on the Wednesday, I was taking a lot of diazepam and Xanax, and after not having them for 3 days, come the Wednesday, mate, I was physically ill. I was really ill. I had a lot of constricting pains in my chest. I had like this, like a numbing headache across, like my frontal cortex, right across the top of my eyes. It was very painful, and so I took some tablets. I got a strip and I took 3 or 4 tablets, and and I was like, I was back. I was fine. I was perfect, and I knew at that point, maybe wouldn't admit it directly at that point to myself, but I did know, even subconsciously, even that I had a problem, and it was a major one.
Yeah.
And kind of January, mate. Well, it was the last day. It was the day before the last day of the year. It was the day before New Year's Eve. I had a pal up at my old house where I used to live, and he fetched an enormity of, consortium of drugs, a big range of them, and we managed to get through the lot of them. And he left a couple of days later, and the day he left was the day before New Year's Eve. And I found myself in that place where we find ourselves as addicts, just wallowing in the depths of self-pity, despair, anxiety.
Yeah.
And I cried a river, mate. I cried an absolute river, and it's not the first time that's happened. That's happened many, many times. But then what do we do? What do we do to mask that pain? We go out and we take more. And that's kind of been the relentless cycle, and like systematically the way it's happened over and over. Over and over and over it's happened.
Yeah.
You kind of get yourself out of that hole, don't you? And I'll sort myself out. I'll sort myself out. For the last 2 years, I was stopping taking drugs every day. I got some bad news in prison, and it was that was a big turning point for me. When I was in prison, the chaplain come and got us and told us that my auntie had died. I was real close to this auntie, real close. Yeah. And again in the chapel, I cried a river uncontrollably. So I couldn't stop, and I was high as a kite in jail, the entire time. But I knew at that point, it changed. Everything changed that day. It was like I realised how much things were my fault.
Yeah.
And up until that day, day was like the spearhead that broke through and changed it all. Because up until that day, what do? We blame everyone else. We blame people, we blame places, we blame things, we blame situational occurrences and anything else, anything we can blame, outside of ourselves, we will cast a finger of blame towards, won't we?
Yeah, we do.
And that's what I done, mate. And when I went back to my cell that day after crying a river, I looked at myself long and hard in one of them little tile plastic mirrors that you get in the jail, and I stared at myself literally for hours. And I knew then I had to make a change. I had to make a lot of changes, but I couldn't. That was the start of me wanting to stop, but couldn't. Up until that day, I thought I was comfortable using forever. I thought I'd always use. But that day changed everything, and even from that day, I was like, I'll just get a little bit more on the wing, and I'll make this the last bit. And it was the last bit 5 times a day, for the next 2 years. I was always stopping, but the thing is, I couldn't, and I didn't really try anything apart from my own self-will, which was not enough.
Nope.
And that day, that I've just mentioned there, when the last session ended for us, before I got into recovery, my brother-in-law was doing really well in recovery, mate, and he's very similar traits and stuff to myself. I love him to bits, and we've been through a lot. And he was in recovery. He'd been going months. Oh, it was the latest and greatest thing. I needed it, apparently. I needed it. I was like, whatever. He come for us about 3 days after I'd cried a river, and literally, he made me go. He said, "You're coming. You're coming. You're coming now." And he's quite forceful, and mate, it was by far, the single most amazing, spectacular, fantastical thing I've ever done with my life. Going into the rooms for that first time.
Yeah, I get that.
The identification that I had, as it just brings out the best in us, because what do? We think as, people still suffering in active addiction, we think that we are the only ones that feel like this. We think that there's nobody else with my problems, and the score, mate. And it's that's what we think. That's what we really believe. And then you don't have to be too long in too many meetings before you realise that we're not alone. And there's a whole subculture of people which rather goes unmentioned, really, in everything, really. You know, the enormity of it, you know, of suffering addicts and the amount of them.
Yeah,
and I knew then I knew I was home then, mate. I really knew I was home. I'd found the right place. It took me a couple of times to get it right, mind. You know, I think I went 59 days. In fact, I went 59 days, day before my green chip I used. And I've had 3 relapses this year, but, you know, no excuses. You know, no excuses. You know, that was me, that. It was all me. But I'm 128 days clean today. You know, who's counting?
Congratulations, brother. Brother, on your addiction, can I ask you some questions there, please?
Ask me anything you like, mate.
Thanks, mate. So for me, I've been in active use for 20 years. And then when I first started in active use, I'd always been around that as a child, without going into too much detail, family. I'd always seen things. It was just very familiar to me. And now I've got, got children, I'm thinking, I don't want that to be familiar to my children. But it was to me. And that's not me passing the buck. I am what I am. No problem at all, right? Take accountability for everything. My range over the past 20 years has been like a real roller coaster. I think at times the disease has kidded me on. If I've been doing well at work, my ego's got the better of me, and I've thought, I'm all right, just a blow on the weekend. I'm not like I used to be when I had no teeth and I was on the heroin and I'd lost myself and I overdosed a few arms. And then, recently, Dan, this year, the worst thing for me, which I found fascinating about yourself is, especially knowing your previous life, which we'll touch on soon if that's okay, and how you used to live your life and what you did. Going to the gym, like I've had to stop. I've just done a video here, mate, and I've had to stop going to the gym because there on the year I got back into the gym. I got into half decent shape for a 40-year-old who had moves, and I thought, I got lost a bit of weight. I couldn't stop rolling my sleeves up, taking pictures, looking at myself, touching my pecs, and the disease got hold of me. Right, I thought I was fucking chocolate, Dan, and it led to me having the biggest relapse of my life. And one that nearly cost me my life ultimately. But ultimately, the one that led to my recent recovery, which I'm forever grateful to my higher power for. But the ego, do you know what I mean, Dan? When you've been, you're a rough lad, you've got a reputation with the world, whatever that fucking means to other people, right? Has the ego been an enemy for you, mate, throughout that period?
Oh, big time. Big time. And I can identify with so much of what you just said there, mate. I really can. And ego, man, and listen, my ego is still there, and it has diminished. It's nothing like it used to be, but I would be telling lies if I said it wasn't still there, of course it's still there, but it, and this disease, once it starts mixing in with your ego, it manifests itself in many, many ways, and it can be very, very patient, very, very cunning, and very manipulative, and it makes me think, I'm something that I'm not sometimes. It makes me think a lot of the time. And it makes me think, I'm further on than I am in my recovery. It'll tell my ego, my disease tells me, you've cracked this. You've got this. You don't need meetings. You don't need to go 3 meetings a week. You just do a bit of step work here and there, mate. You'll be all right. And, before you know it, I'd lost my last relapse. It was a mate's funeral of mine. And I was doing pretty good in recovery, like second time round, and I was, again, I thought, I've got this. What I should have done was just go to the service because it was a fantastic service, and everyone still talks about it. It'll be talked about forever, this service. It was like a football match, the cheering and the lad's sister was speaking, in the microphone, and she broke down. She couldn't continue. Mate, and the church just erupted. They were cheering. Everyone was hugging each other. The place went mental. It went bananas. And she brought us all around to finish the speech, the eulogy, and it was special. It was a special send off, and rightly so. He was a lovely lad. He'd be sadly missed forever. A good mate of mine. And what I should have done after that, what was essentially a really good feeling, given the circumstances. It was a really good send-off. It was a good feeling. It was a buzz like I've never known at a funeral. So what did I do? I'll just go down for a Coke, I said. You know what I mean? I've got this. And, mate,
been there.
I didn't even get halfway through my Coke. I bought one. And just that situation, circumstances, all the old faces, you know. And the crack was really good, you know, as it is, mate, as it is, you know. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss that sort of stuff, you know, but I'd kept away from it. Before, you know, I was back in the thick of it, all the crack, all the boys, all the lads. I'll go on, I will have a pint, just a pint it started, mate. That was the end of it, you know, and I should know better, because as soon as that alcohol touches my lips, mate, I'm away. And I'm in self-destruct mode, and I'm destroying any savings what I've got, and I just don't care about anything anymore, apart from, you know, finding more, you know, scoring more, bigger amounts, and
get you. We're powerless, aren't we?
4 days powerless, mate, is what we are.
Powerless, yeah.
And 4 days later, I ended up in here. I've been all bouncing around all kinds of kitchens and that. But as you know, mate, you know, I wasn't having a good time.
No,
you know,
no.
I wasn't having a good time, mate. It was nothing like it used to be, you know. And as they say in the rooms, you know, using will never be the same, and it certainly will not. No, you know, especially for me, you know, it never be the same. I can't get that buzz. I knew immediately, you know, once I'd used in that funeral. After the funeral, I knew immediately, you know, that it wasn't for me. If you like, I knew I'd lost my clean time. I knew I'd have to talk about it in meetings. I knew I'd have to tell my sponsor. And there was like a heavy burden, you know, while I was using, of all the things that I needed to do. And it wasn't the same. It never will be the same, you know, that's a fact.
Yeah.
And 4 days later, I ended up with a load of undesirable people in here, you know, and 4 days, I just jumped up. I was sat more or less here where I am. I just jumped up and said, right, everybody out. You know, I've had it. About a dozen people in my house. I don't know if it just dawned, but it took 4 days and, you know, thousands and thousands of pounds before I got there.
Yeah.
But you know, where I am now in recovery, you know, I've completely lost the desire, and I don't want to do that anymore, mate. I really, really don't. You know.
God bless. Just for today, I've got to say, mate, as a friend, you know, we connected through our mutual friend Paul Venice, and we had an exchange on social media, and I watch your stuff, man. I message you often just saying that was brilliant today. I look out for your videos on YouTube. I'd recommend anyone who's struggling to do that, because the stuff that you put out there for me is the most honest stuff I've seen on social media, and it's absolutely, I find it inspirational, mate. It inspires me, to be honest, as well. So thank you. Yeah, I think your lowest point, so my lowest point, Dan, was overdosing. But keeping that overdose a secret to people, because getting rushed to hospital and getting your shirt ripped off, and essentially, I guess people were waiting for me to die. I'm a father. Do you know what I mean? I adore, as we all do, I adore my kids. But when people will say, is that not enough? Of course it's enough, but I've got a fucking disease. Do you know, I'm powerless to that disease. I'm living in insanity. It's not, do you know, it's a disease acting out. What was your lowest moment, mate, throughout your addiction, please?
There's been a couple, you know. That one that I just mentioned in jail was certainly one of them. But 2 years before that, I was on a tax. You know, I was you know, taxing someone, and I've done that many times. You know, far from proud of it. I had so much of a broad spectrum of negative behaviour, which I'm not proud of. But there was this particular day. It was a Boxing Day. And I was on a tax, and I went round to tax this kid. There was some Glasgow lads who'd cuckooed this lad's house, and I thought they were all out. You know, I thought they were all out grafting. I thought there was just this kid in, little man about my age, you know, and I thought there was just him in. And, you know, I went in the house, mate, and I was wrong. You know, they were all in the house reloading, and I got stabbed 3 times. And I made my way back out to the car. I was bleeding a lot, you know. One went right through my bicep, another just under my arm, and one just in the back of my leg, just underneath my arse cheek. And I made it out to the car, you know, somehow. And I bled, and the lads who were with us, they just kicked us out of A&E, you know, basically on the front. And you know, I woke up. They didn't have my blood, you know. I needed a transfusion. They didn't have my blood, and I very nearly went. And I got airlifted to the RBI, and, you know, they have my blood there, obviously, and I come round, I was wired up and that, and you know, it was low. It was certainly a near-death experience, you know, to say the least. But for whatever reason, mate, you know, it wasn't enough. You know,
it's a higher power, that. It's a higher power at work. Can I come on that point, please, Dan? Because a lot of people watch this, right? Will watch this, right, and they'll watch somebody, to me,
I'd love to work with you because I think you're articulate. I think you're honest. I know you're decent. I think you're really, really funny and charming. I think you're a very intelligent man. But the terms we've just used there, some people who watch us will think, what's a tax? Right? What are they on about? So what about there basically, it's like a sort of an house where criminals go and they've got some sort of illegal things in there, and you were going within your role of like an enforcer type thing to take something from them to feed your addiction or your lifestyle. Is that about fair, Dan?
Yeah, both, mate.
Well. Yeah. So what to speak to you now, that's unrecognisable. That, and for me, when I look at Danny, I see nothing but for people who are struggling in addiction or have got some sort of ego or reputation of to. I see in you hope and rehabilitation. That's what I see, and I think I find you inspirational, mate. And I hope some people can watch us and go, because on Saturday night we're going to touch on this soon. You're going to be fighting live as a professional.
Yeah. Yes, mate.
It's amazing that you've got a relationship with your children now.
Yeah, big time, man.
You work in the program, and I'm proud to call you a friend, brother. It's just fucking inspirational.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
You're inspirational, mate. Honestly, you're an inspirational man. They are low moments, and that wasn't enough to stop it. Because I'll tell you the truth. When I OD'd, well, one of your times I OD'd, I could hear the word my daughter's name, honey. I could see it, but I won't get too much detail because it'll be out soon. It'll be on a documentary thing that we're making soon. But it snowed. And if it wasn't for the snow getting something in my mouth so I could ring the ambulance, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right? That's a higher power at work.
Definitely. That is higher power.
Isn't it? Like, and that wasn't enough to stop me using, but you're saying after getting attacked, stabbed, a blood transfusion, airlifted to the hospital, you continue to choose after that, mate?
Yeah. I was doped up. I was doped up, obviously, so I didn't need to use when I was in there. I was on my back for 17 days. And, mate, the second I was on my feet, mate, just what do we do? Finding ways and means, to get more immediately.
Wow.
Immediately.
So people are going to watch lads like you, lads like yourself who can obviously handle yourself. They get a reputation. That creates some sort of image or persona or some sort of romantic tale of that type of gangster lifestyle, which is bullshit, right?
Yeah, it's bullshit.
And then the drug thing for me, people watch it, and I think a lot of them, I did, Wolf of Wall Street, drugs, parties, women, nightclubs, Ferraris. What it really was me behind a curtain in a room, avoiding my phone, scared that somebody was going to come and get me for days on end. I'm a father.
Yeah.
The fucking reality to what we're actually told couldn't be any more from the truth, mate, could it?
No, it's and listen, the times of me enjoying myself, mate, we're probably in my late teens, when things were new, and I'm not glorifying drug taking in any way, shape or form, but we're being honest here, late teens, early 20s, mate, I had some really good times, but we're going away to raves and that. We're over at Yarm all the time at the tall trees, and, I loved it, but then, I looking back, not at the time, but looking back, I quickly realised that I was that person that was always last up. I was always that person. Everyone else could do it sensibly, if you like. They could have a night away and they could go home and they could go to, back to the mothers or back to the family or whatever they were doing. I couldn't. I exhausted every option and avenue and every cent I had, just to kick the ass out of it. And looking back, not at the time, but looking back, I was that person, that was always up the longest, and just the most radical, out of the people I surrounded myself with. And we were a radical bunch, but I was more really. But like I say, I don't remember having any really good times, excluding that time frame, from when I was maybe 22, 23 onwards. I don't really remember enjoying myself. It was just a bit chore. It was just part of my programming. It was just what I'd done. It wasn't in any stretch of the imagination. What can be labelled a good time. It just wasn't. And now in recovery, this is a good time. This is the best time of my life. I've never been in this position where my feelings have come back, to the full emotional extent. And I can process things the way I can. True inner feelings of joy and peace. Which I've never experienced. Never until now. And they've come slowly over a period of time, and I've worked at it. I've worked at it hard. And I haven't got it right, every time. But it's been a process, and this has been my journey, and ultimately it's led me to, the best time of my life, and this is just the start for me. I'm still relatively new in recovery, and the gifts of recovery that I've been, granted, as in, my emotional state, stability, balance, connection with higher power, grateful for the program, grateful to be alive every day. Those are things that are much more powerful and, things that I can call, a legitimate good time. They're the things that really bring me joy and peace,
God bless you, man. God bless you. Connecting with your kids, mate. Are you open with your kids about your disease?
The eldest, yeah. The youngest, fortunately, the youngest are 8, 10 and 12. Well, they're, fortunately, they're young enough, to not really know what was going on,
Good.
And I'm very grateful for that, because that's perhaps a conversation for the future. I'll never hide who I was, but they know, they recognise, they feel, they feel a different person around them, these days, the connection's better, the love's deeper, not that I didn't ever love my kids, but you don't prolong, these feelings and these emotions when you're in active addiction, that everything's very shallow and a lot of things are just on the surface, things don't run deep like they do now, real, true spiritual and emotional connection to things. And it's a beautiful feeling, man. It's beautiful.
God bless. God bless. I'm so happy for you, mate. I genuinely am. To see how much you give out to people as well. You're a real giver of a human being. I'm grateful for your friendship.
Thank you, brother.
Like the thing that happened last year, the one thing that went viral. I mean, okay, I won't ask names or nothing like that, but can I ask certain questions around?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, of course.
Thanks. So last year you had what would be referred to on the streets as a straightener for somebody. Yeah. To resolve a difference. I'm intrigued and interested and fascinated by this because I'm a street lad. I've had no straightness by the way because I'm not a fighting lad. No problem with admitting that.
Yeah.
I'm a life insurance salesperson and I'm in the business world, and I genuinely feel so many issues and problems could be settled the old primal way, the barbaric way, not by two businessmen having the fisticuffs, but by sitting down, just facing it and having that conflict of just working it out and then shaking hands and walking away, because too much goes to court over email and it just creates so much cancer and negativity for people, and it creates challenges that we just can't overcome. So can we speak a little bit about that experience, mate?
Yes, mate,
obviously, I know there's some things you can't talk about, but why it happened, what it happened, and what it means to be a man and resolve things like,
Well, started off as a little bit of back and forth. You see, I wasn't part of social media, 2 years ago. I never even had a smartphone. I had one of the little grafters phone, when it was quite busy. I never had what do you call it, like social media of any kind, really. Well, I just didn't have any, none.
That's the street, isn't it?
And that was it. Yeah, I just didn't.
It's the street, yeah.
Yeah, man, it just wasn't for me, even though it was massive, I just never, my actual opinion on it was at the time that the people who had that stuff were just divvies. That's where my head was at the time. They were just divvies who had that stuff. But now I get a lot of benefit from social media. And I quite like it. But,
God bless you.
But at the time, there was an individual, who had his own platform and stuff. And I don't really want to mention, because it's distasteful and it's negative. But
absolutely, mate, yeah.
He was. All I can really say is he wasn't a very nice person.
Okay. Yeah, fair play. Yeah.
And I understand that I wasn't. I understand that. But we're talking about different levels of, people here, and for whatever reason, this individual was, he was parading this disabled lad around, what we know, a lovely lad. And he's parading him around, making videos and stuff. And this is on top of the information that I already knew about him. I seen this video one day on somebody's phone. He's parading this disabled lad round. He's saying he's going to be this mental health person and he's to help people and stuff, which is all fair and well. But I looked at it and just thought, well, idiot, because I know the type of person we're talking about. And I was at a barbecue one day seeing this lass, And the disabled lad's individual, that individual there, his mum and dad approached us and said, "Did you ever see this video on that?" And I says, "Yeah, I seen it a couple of weeks ago, whatever." And they said, that person, when he dropped our son back off, he tried to charge us. He tried to charge us for the hours that he'd taken him out, And on top of what I already knew about him, though, I was just disgusted. I've got a lass who's on the spectrum, and not a bad understanding of, autism spectrum disorder, and I've done a little bit of research, not in depth, but enough what I need to know, and I was just outraged really by what was being said and how this poor individual was being used, for another man's personal gain, if you like, for his own gratification and recognition. Mental health was getting a lot of publicity at the time, and I felt it was like the wrong person jumping on the right reason, the wrong person jumping on, the right reason for the wrongly. And listen, I had a lot of my own problems going on at the time. I was very negative. I was in active addiction, and I was there's a lot of darkness. Kind of around, very short-tempered, very not a desirable character by any stretch of the imagination. So I challenged this person, and I channeled all the negativity and everything that was going on in my own life. I channeled it towards this one topic, and I said, I want to fight this person, and his little bit of reputation himself for fighting. I said, I want to fight this person. So I made a video and challenged him. I was just getting my pal to come round and do it on his phone and upload it to a WhatsApp group, and it was just kind of going around the town from there. The videos were going back and forward. He was going to do this to me. I was going to do this to him. One day, I got arrested. I got arrested for malicious communications and harassment. And I couldn't believe it, because this person was supposed to be a bare-knuckle fighter and all the rest of it. But yet he runs to the police when people call him names. And I was like, wow. So I got out. I've been locked up, made another video, and that was intimidating a witness. So I got remanded. I was remanded in custody for a 12-week, shy of 3 months. My granddad was dying at the time. This is a big moment in my life, really. My granddad was dying, and with the relationship that I had with him, and given the fact that I called him dad and all this stuff, I got my legal team filed a compassionate bail with immediate release, and I got it. It was granted. And during this time, my ex-wife picked us up with the kids from jail, and they run us home immediately because my granddad was on borrowed time, and he didn't know I was in jail. I was his blue-eyed boy, he thought I was working away. We couldn't tell him. And I come through the doors of his house, and he had a nurse there, and he was in his bed, and he couldn't open his eyes, and as soon as he heard my voice, he was like, "Is that Danny?" And he put his hand out and we spoke. Me and my mum weren't speaking at the time. Me and my mum hadn't spoke for a year or so. And he held his hand, and he said, I said, "I haven't got long left." That was his words. And he says, "All I want, Danny, is for you and your mum to get on." He said, "You need to see eye to eye, for me." He says, there's only 2 people I've got left in this world. He said, "I need you to get on, And I says, "Of course, I'll make it up." So I'd do anything for him, So I'll make it up to her, And he was dead within the hour, mate. It was very, very, it was a bad day, sad day. So what did I do with all that sadness and all that anger that I had inside? I harnessed it, and I had it in for this person now. In my mind at this point, all this stuff was his fault. Wrongly so. It wasn't right, but that's it in my mind. That's what was going on. It was this person's fault that I'd suffered all these things. It was this person's fault that I'd only got an hour. With my dad, really, essentially. So I carried this hatred on. I was out for another 10 weeks. I got sentenced to Crown Court to 16-month sentence for intimidating a witness. And still at that point, wasn't fair. It wasn't fair, and led up to the moment when I was in Preston jail. I'd done 3 jails in 3 days. I went Durham, Kirkham and Preston, 3 jails in 3 days, and landed at Preston. And a couple of days before Christmas, my auntie died. I told you Mitch the chaplain come and got us. And at that point, on that day, I started blaming myself. That was the day I started blaming myself. But no matter how much I blamed myself, I couldn't, alleviate and extinguish, this hatred that I had for this individual. But I tried my best to put it to bed. I tried my best to get on with my life when I got out. And I was out about 14, 15 months, and the situation reared its ugly head again. I was being called out, video after video, for whatever reason. I don't know if his channel wasn't doing too good and it needed some numbers or something. I don't know. But I can't fathom out the reason he started again, And I had a restraining order calling out. I couldn't mention this person's name. I couldn't go anywhere near this person. But here he was, ridiculing us on the internet. I'm this, I'm that, I'm a coward, I'm this, I'm that, and the other. So some travelling lads got in touch with us who will go unnamed, said, you are fighting this lad in 6 days' time. And I just said, no problem, and I kind of kidded on like I wasn't too happy about it on the phone. I was like, oh, okay. I got off that phone and I nearly done a fucking somersault. I thought, this is going to happen now, even though I was aware of the restraining order and I was aware of all the legal restrictions, I thought, this now is going to happen. He can't back out now. He's got these travelling lads essentially making him do it. I got in touch with our man, Paul Venice, asked if he'd be my fair play man. He agreed. 5 days later, I told you I had them little problems. I tried to stop taking drugs for 3 days. It wasn't going to happen. So I took a couple of Valium on the Wednesday and I took half a Xanax on the morning just to make sure I was going to be okay on the morning of the fight. And what happened. It was a bit of a bloodbath. For what it's worth, despite the weight difference, I thought we were really well matched. It was tough, and from a fight fan's point of view, it was a good fight. It was a good fight to watch. And when it was over, I was driving home with Paul, and I did feel rather unburdened. I felt like a released. I felt like I channeled it. This person that essentially, in my mind, had caused me so much stress, and he was that one person. I always wanted to put hands on. There was nobody ever else like that in my life. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to put hands on this person, and I'd done it, and I was kind of satisfied in what I'd done. Then I ended up in court over it because I was breaching a restraining order, and I got a 4-month tag, which is I'm in the last couple of weeks of it now. I've just got it around my ankle. So yeah, mate, that wasn't the short version, but that was the full version of what happened, mate.
Well, can I ask you a question then? What stands out to me is the thought of conflict with somebody, and that then you're doing cartwheels. That like to me personally, I'm just embracing all vulnerability here, right, and being honest.
Yeah.
That's my worst nightmare, that direct conflict with someone, whether it be physical or even verbal. To me, it's very unnatural for humans. I guess that's what makes fighters special breeds of people, right? And very unique. Do you not get that even now, like 3 days before? Is it your professional debut Saturday? Is it not your
pro debut, mate, yeah. But yeah, listen, of course I do. Of course I do, mate. I'm only human, I get fight fear, I get nerves, I get doubt. They haven't set in yet, but they will. They will. They're on the way for sure, and they'll come. But I've had, a lot of fights, arranged fights. I've had 30-odd fights, in boxing format and in front of crowds and this type of thing. And I do love it. I still do love to fight. I've got no interest in fighting on the street anymore or anything like that. I'm just no interested in it. I've done that. It's not the way to live, and I would advise anybody, who thinks there's something and loves doing that sort of thing, I won't advise anybody, and I'll tell you why, because nobody could advise me, when I was in that stage, I've had to do this for myself, I've been told off many a wise man, that what I was doing was wrong and I would see the light one day, and in my opinion, they were just a divvy, I was the only sane person on earth, I know what I'm doing, I'm Danny. And the truth slowly sets in, mate. It might take some dark times. It might take to be at the bottom of a bottle. It might take years in active addiction, whatever that thing might be. There'll be various catalysts, but the time will come. When your eyes will be opened. And you realise what a fool you've been for so long. And for all the wrong reasons as well. You're not like you've got some serious passion behind the reasons that you're fighting people. It's just ego, it's just pride, it's just reputation, and I'm glad them days are over. But I do still love to fight. I do love to fight, and I'm just glad now that I've got this professional contract and I get I get a chance to channel this now, and channel, my passion really, on a professional format and get paid wages for it. And I love those fight nerves, the butterflies and the fear and the doubt and the nervous energy. I love all that. I never feel more alive, than when I know, I'm about to have a showdown with somebody, and it's I can't help it. It's something in my DNA. I love it. I love it. I relish it, and I can't wait. I can't wait to lock horns with this man. I know he's an athlete. I know he's going to bring a lot to the table, but I'm concentrating on what I do well. And I just can't wait.
You know what, mate? I watch your videos. I look at, I find inspiration from, but you never look as happy as when you're early in the morning. You seem to come alive.
Yeah.
You always seem really happy when you're talking about fighting. And you seem to love the technical aspect as well. And from that dark moment with that, the fall that you had, which I don't know, it's nothing to me like that thing that you. It seems to be you've grown from that as a human being. You've developed. You're now in sobriety, and when you've got this opportunity now to be a professional fighter, I think that's. Would you ever think about working this full time as a coach, maybe, and helping passing on your knowledge? Because you do seem to know a lot. You're a bit of a student of the art.
Yeah, mate. I've loved combat sports ever since I could open my eyes. Fighting for me, not just engaging in fighting and being a fighter. No, not just that. As a fight fan, I'm a big fight fan as well. I'm a massive fight fan in all combat sports. If me and you were talking now, and there's a fight on over there, I'm over here. I can't concentrate on anything else when there's a fight on. It's the rawest, most primal form of entertainment for me. Something very gladiatorial about it. It goes. Something in me, goes right down to the very atom, the very genome, my DNA. It's I love it. I absolutely love it. But like I say, I'm not a violent person anymore. I don't condone violence at all. But this is professional sport now. This is not an excuse, but this is the way to do it. If you want to fight anybody, if you want to fight people, and your passion is fighting and you like to fight, then you should be doing it in a controlled environment. You should be a boxer or an MMA fighter or whatever it is. That's where you should be channeling it. That's how you should channel it. You don't go out on the street and, that's violence, and I've been there, and it's not cool. And it ultimately just leads to sadness, misery, regret, loss and pain. That's what's coming in that lifestyle. That's all you're gonna fathom. It's all you're gonna get to. But this way, in a professional setup for wages, on a big stage with a formidable opponent, this is what dreams are made of, mate.
You know what, Paul? It's absolutely amazing. I'm smiling as a friend because I'm so happy for you. I wonder if you thought at the moment, God bless your auntie when she died, or your granddad, that may have brought a tear to my eye. That's so sad. At them moments there, in the midst of addiction, you ever thought you'd be fighting it? Is it at Wembley as well you're fighting at this weekend? Is it London?
Wembley, mate,
It's at Wembley. Yeah. In a professional fight.
London, Wembley, mate. Wembley, yeah.
With your own platform, and you inspire thousands of people daily who hang on your every word. What a miraculous story of rehabilitation, recovery, mate. I hope someone finds, because I find strength in you, mate. I think you're amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, higher power, mate. Like you say, the more I've got conscious contact with God of my understanding, and the more I work the program, and the more I live these things on a daily basis. Not just, and listen, I'll be honest. There's days I don't want to do my step work. There's days I don't want to pray. There's days I don't want to meditate. There's days I don't want to open that little blue just for today book. I just don't want to do it, but I do it anyway. I do it anyway. And that's the discipline that needs that's the discipline that you need. That's the desired and required discipline, because you can't be motivated all the time. Motivation is, wanting to get up and train, wanting to do your step work, really having that internal burning desire to read you just for today, to do your prayers, meditation and all that stuff. But you can't be like that all the time. Nobody can. Nobody can be motivated to that point every day. No. But if you're disciplined, you'll do it anyway. Regardless of how you feel, mate. And that's, for me, has been the key. That's been the persistent, the perseverance and that continuation of, progression and improvement, man. Having the discipline to do what I don't always want to do.
100%. Listen, motivation's an espresso, a can of Red Bull. Anyone can have one and listen to a Rocky song and have a bit of a lift. But what goes up, history tells us comes down and it crashes really hard. But discipline can take you from where you are to where you want to be. But it's the hardest thing to do. It's to have that discipline and repeat and have repetition. We seem to be really scared as human beings of having repetition when actually it's the cornerstone of all greatness. It really is.
Of course it is.
One day at a time.
Well, absolutely, mate. One day at a time, mate. I love that. And of course it is, and we don't, like I say, it's not about, I understand more than anyone, that motivation I was telling about. We don't want to do these things, because what do we do with people? We like to be comfortable. We like to sit there on that big L couch and watch Netflix, that's what we're chill out or, whatever we like to do, active addiction, anything, these are the things they're instilled in us, but if you want to grow, if you want to change, you must have discipline. You must do the things that you don't want to do rigorously. You must be militant with it, because if you're not, you're going to revert to type. It's as simple as that. That's how it works. That's how our neurochemistry works. That's how biologically how we work as people. We can only change. For me, a few years ago, I always said that I would always use. I thought I'll always use. I just accepted, the insanity of using. It was just the chaos and everything was just normality to me. And I says, I'm always going to do this. Why would I want to stop? This is me type of thing. But as I've said, as a couple of the dark times I previously mentioned, once these things accumulate, and you can only go down so many times, it might be a dozen, it might be 300, but the time will come when, the fear of staying the same, is much greater than the fear of change, and that's what it was for me. I was terrified of staying on the path I was on. I had so many near-death experiences, so many dark times, so much loss, pain, misery, regret. I couldn't take any more of it. I had to change. I needed to change, and thank, by the grace of God, I found recovery. I found the rooms of NA. And that was the beginning. That day when I walked into them meetings, mate, that was the beginning. That was the first step of my real life. That was the first step towards, a life with substance. A beautiful, loving, caring life. Which I just embrace now on a daily basis. It's nice, real nice.
Yeah, it's amazing to listen to. I agree with you. The price of ambition is exhaustion, bit of humility, a little touch of failure, and probably losing some people around you who thought it'd be your friends for life. Yeah,
mate.
The price of not following your ambition and not chasing your dreams is complete and utter steady decline, a potential rot and death. It just is like, if we're not, if we stop growing, we're eventually just grind into a hole. We really do. Can I ask your opinion on something as a friend, please? Maybe it's a touch of advice. Thank you. Mate. So for myself, recovery has been great at times, but I'm really, really struggling. And I value your opinions while I'm asking the question. I'm really struggling with living with the insanity that I lived in. I'm getting zaps really bad in the night. Like, I've had in the past week 2 sleepless nights where I've been up all night, and I'm not at that step yet where I need to go and say sorry to people. But I am struggling with my pastime, like really bad. Yeah. This is not a cry for help. Don't worry, I'm not going to get found hanging from somewhere. Hopefully not. But
I know what you're saying.
I get suicidal thoughts. I'm thinking, I don't think I can face the things that I've done, the people I've hurt, the people I dragged into my own insanity. Whilst people say inactive use or being active use, while I was off my head on drugs, while I was 4 days sleeping and sleep without sleep and deprived of sleep and just literally living in another dimension, mental, right? The people I've dragged into my insanity, but most importantly, my babies, like my beautiful fucking children. It's my job as a man to protect them and look after them. And I'm really struggling with that. And have you got any advice to that, please?
I can identify there, mate, what you're saying about the past. We've all got one. Of mine's been very dark. I've been very violent, and I've hurt a lot of people. Not just physically, but emotionally. I've really trampled on some people's hearts. I've been a total scumbag, mate. Some of my behaviour, really bad, like really, really, really bad, mate. Terrible, horrendous, and You know, and I've got to live with that, mate. You know, I've got to live with that on a day-to-day basis. But, you know, I think what's important for me is the separation between then and now, you know, and I have to look at it with some gratitude, you know, regardless of the pain I've caused, you know, and misery. Regardless of those things, you know, I have to look at it with some gratitude, because ultimately, you know, the entirety of my story, you know, and all its ups and downs and all its everything, the entirety of it, you know, has led me to where I am, you know. And if I've got a lot of amends to make, mate, a lot of amends, you know. And if I'm given enough time on this earth, you know, and I can stay with the program, you know, I will make them, you know. I will make them, you know. I've got no problem in taking the knee, you know. And it was the like you touched on it a little bit before, mate, the acceptance, the accountability, and the responsibility for our own actions. You know, we done them things, nobody else, you know. So I think it's of a minimum requirement that, you know, we recognise, you know, to its full extent, you know, that it was us, and more so the reasons why we done it, which, you know, active addiction and the insanity and the disease and all those other things. But ultimately, mate, it was us. You know, it was us that done those things. So we have to, as men, you know, accept them, and, you know, and try and make amends as best we can. I have made some amends. I've got a lot to make, you know, but this is just me speaking personally here. You know, I've got a lot of amends to make, but if I'm given enough time on this earth, I will make them, because that is my responsibility. And in fairness, it's my duty. You know, it's my duty as the person I am today, you know, to wholeheartedly accept my wrongs and, you know, my shortcomings, character defects, all the stuff that led to these horrendous things that I've done. I must accept all these things, you know, and we need to make amends, mate. It goes back to what I was talking about before a little bit. There's a bit of discipline there. You know, we don't want to face these things. We don't want to fully accept and recognize, you know, some of the dark deeds and, you know, some of the dark days, if you like. As people, we don't, you know, as humans, we don't. But, you know, if we are going to continue to improve, you know, we have to make progress. You know, we have to, you know. So it's a question of, like, you know, how do you want to go about it, mate? Do you want to put these things in a box and pretend they never happened, mate? Because that'll chew you up and eventually give you less sleep. You know, we have to address them. You know, we have to, mate. And it's hard. You know, it's hard. A lot of people don't understand. You know, and I'm not expecting everybody to understand. You know, but when you've done as many bad things as I've done, you know, they don't just go away because I'm in recovery. You know, they don't just go away because, you know, I'm happy with myself now. You know, and I've got self-love and I've got inner peace. You know, they don't go away. You know what I mean? It's not like, you know, I'll forget about that now because I'm in a good mood. No, it's nothing like that, you know. We must make amends, you know. And there's certain things I know that I can't make amends for. I just can't, because I've done a lot of things where to make amends would incriminate myself, you know, and to make amends would get certain people after me, you know, because I've done things with taxes with masks on and a lot of these different type of things that I can't actually make amends for. So what do? I make amends in other ways, you know, and I try and be kind and courteous to people, to a person who's got nothing to do with this situation, you know, and I'll try and maybe dispense some knowledge or just a random act of kindness. You know, if I see somebody struggling now, you know, I'll make it my business nearly every time to go and extend some courtesy, go and ask them if I could help them with something. Can I help you with this? Would you like a hand there? You know, little things like giving money to the homeless in town, you know, and, you know, just like I say, just giving people your time, you know, when you know you could be doing something else, you know. That's how I make amends for the things that I can't make amends for. Do you understand? You know, that's the route I go down. You know, I try and be a better member of society, and I try and be like I say, kind, caring, and courteous, you know, to my fellow man, you know, and listen, it ultimately makes me feel good as well, you know, to be those things that I never was, you know, and to do it wholeheartedly and to mean it, you know. I can make amends in those ways, you know, and I'm very pleased and proud to say that, mate.
Love it, mate. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate you. Good friend. I have a lot of respect for you.
No problem, mate.
I've absolutely loved it. You're a good man. And I have a lot of respect and love in my heart for you, Dan. And I look forward
Likewise,
to
mate. Thank you.
building our friendship. Thank you so much.
Big time.
And I'm excited for you. God bless, brother.
God bless you, mate. Have a nice day.
Okay. You too. Thank
Bye-bye
you.
for now, mate.
Bye-bye.
Join the award-winning team at Bespoke Financial, where you get free training in your own time.